10 years of running an agency and everything was still in her head. That's where today's conversation starts. My guest, Natasha Golinsky, founder of On Purpose Projects, didn't plan to step back from the day to day. A stage 2 breast cancer diagnosis forced the issue in a way she never saw coming. What followed was messy and uncertain, but it worked. And what surprised me most about this conversation wasn't the crisis or the handoff, it was what happened after. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you want to grow an agency to 7 figures and beyond without working more hours in your business, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I know what it takes to build an agency, including supporting an agency owner in selling and exiting. I also have a master's degree in communications, specializing in organizational development. My team and I have worked behind the scenes of multiple 7-figure agencies and have coached and consulted with over 150 agency owners. All this to say, when you join us on the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, you get real-world experience and practical tips that help you work less, earn more, and lead with integrity. So let's go. Hey friends, today we're talking about something that is really close to my heart. It's a conversation I have often with agency owners and clients because underneath so many growth questions is a deeper one. How do you build a team and a business that can run well without everything depending on you? Not just so you can step back when you need to, but so you can actually scale in a healthier, more sustainable way. My guest today is Natasha Golinsky, founder of On Purpose Projects, a custom web and e-commerce development agency. Natasha has built her agency using a remote contractor model and has intentionally designed the business so she's no longer in the middle of the day-to-day. What makes this conversation especially meaningful is that this shift was not just about growth or efficiency. Her experience with breast cancer became a major turning point in rethinking the kind of business she needed to build and the role she wanted to play in it. So today we're talking about what it really takes to build and lead a strong remote contractor team, how to make an agency less founder dependent, and what becomes possible when you build a business that can keep moving without everything resting on your shoulders. Welcome, Natasha. I've been waiting to get you on this podcast. I'm excited that you're here. For those who are just meeting you, can you tell us about On Purpose Projects and the kind of work your agency does?
We are an 11-year-old full-stack web development agency. We specialize in e-commerce, custom, corporate code, complex dev projects. And I have never built a website, so the irony is not lost on me of what I do for a living. And so that's what we do.
What's really exciting is that you've built your agency using a full team of virtual remote contractors rather than a traditional in-house team. What led you to build that way?
Well, I'm like the quintessential accidental agency owner. Pre-agency life, I was a management consultant in the nonprofit sector. And how I got started in the agency world was I had a client who was like, said to me, he's like, hey, can you find someone to help me do my website? I was like, yeah, sure. And I went to Upwork and I got a guy, $5 an hour, no idea what was going on. And I brought him in and he did the website fix. And then my client was like, you know what, actually my partner was wondering if your guy could look at my thing or his thing. And it was just sort of evolved like that. And so I started with a team literally from day one because I had no idea what to do. Like I said, I've never built a website. My background is all in management. I was a recruiter in a previous life. And my background is always in management, recruitment, project management, sales management, things like that. So yeah, I've had a team since the very beginning. I think I've never, unlike a lot of agency owners, I wasn't a graphic designer who got busy and became an agency owner. I started from day one as a team leader.
What you're pointing to is we see a lot of agency owners have a specialty. So they are good designers, or maybe they're good web developers, or maybe they know SEO well, whatever that is, whatever the starting point is. They are really good at what they do. And before they know it, they have more clients than they can handle. And then they realize, oh, I got to build this team. And it sounds like for you, it's quite different. You knew that you may not have been the marketer to start with, but you were definitely a management consultant and knew that for the business to thrive, you needed people to come in and support. At what point did you realize you need to build a business that could operate without you being at the center of the day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we fast forward like 10 years, it was so funny because I have three kids. I have three teenage kids. And my youngest was in high school, was going into high school. And so all of a sudden, all my kids were in the same school. And I was like, I don't have to drive everybody in like five different directions every day. And I remember thinking, I'm like, okay, this is my first window that I'm going to actually be able to like grow my business, focus on my business. And I hired a coach who had built $1 million Shopify agency in 2 years. And I was so excited. I was like, finally, I can focus. And then 3 weeks later, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And so I was like, not a great timing. And so all of a sudden, I'm freaking out. All these plans are out the window, right? And all of a sudden, I was just like thrown into this situation where I had 6 weeks before I was scheduled for a bilateral mastectomy reconstruction with chemo following right after that. And my oncologist, she was like, look, most people don't work through chemo or don't work through their treatment, and you got to figure out what you're going to do. And I was like, oh my God. And because I'm a single income household, it's just me. Like, I don't have a husband who's going to pay the bills if I can't work. I didn't have, as a self-employed person, it's not like you get like medical insurance for that kind of thing. And so I was really, really freaking out. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I knew that I couldn't shut the business down because I had a lot of people, at that time. I think I had like 10 different people that I had on payroll, and it was me, and I was the center. And I'd always just, I would always been like, I'd never been in deliverables, but I was definitely management, marketing, and money. Like that was my lane. And I was like, I had to replace myself. And this was after a decade. So this wasn't just me new with like processes, like this was like me fully ingrained. It was all in my head. And been doing the same thing for a decade. And I had a friend who I'd known, who was actually a client of mine for 4 years. She was a project manager of one of our clients, our e-commerce clients. And she and I had stayed friends. And I was like, are you available? And she'd been laid off. And I was like, I need you. And so we did really, really short onboarding before my treatment started. And it was definitely chaos, like moving myself out and her in especially during that time where I was really sick and things like that. But yeah, that was my not so strategic scaling story.
I'm sorry to hear about the cancer diagnosis. I can only imagine how stressful it might have been as you were going through it. We talk about it in hindsight right now, like it created for you an opportunity to really step out of your business. But of course, as you're going through it, I can imagine a ton of stress. When you brought this person into your business, what was the first thing that you did in order to hand the keys of your business over to them?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of trust that has to be there. So what's the first thing that you think really set the path right?
I think my story is such an unconventional situation. I think between what I did and what I would have done is very different. I kind of look at my story as the cautionary tale because I literally was onboarding her when I was like high on pain medication or like on the couch in chemo. Like it was not a strategic step by step. It was very much throw her in. And the good thing was she already knew my team because she'd been my client for 4 years. So she already knew everybody and she knew what I did, and she knew the brand and she knew our values. And so she wasn't coming in cold. She wasn't a technical project manager. So she had no idea the difference between a CMS and a domain and a host. She had no idea how any of that worked. And so we spent a lot of time, her work with me and working with the team to try to get all the vernacular figured out. But the first thing that I basically did is obviously really help her understand the role. In her case, she was going to be taking over project management. Like that was her first thing. Like she didn't do the money right away, but she just started it as a project manager. And so understanding process, how does this work from beginning to end, from discovery call to offboarding, like what does that look like? And taking her through all the steps and who does what. And the good thing is internally, my team is very organized in our process between the developers and the designers and the QA. Like they are very systematic. It was just my piece of having to explain it all was not organized. If I had to do it over, I would have done a much better job documenting my roles and kind of creating some sort of succession planning, like in the case that I wasn't available. But yeah, I think the first thing that we did to answer your question was giving a really high level first view of our process, and then internally like breaking down all the steps of what's involved, what do you need, who does what, who to talk to. Because again, I was thinking I was going to be gone. So I didn't know how available I was going to be to her. So it was like this crash course in how do we work, right? How do we get it done? So
It's so superwoman of you because you're on painkillers at this time and you're figuring it out. You know the saying that you build the wings as you jump?
Yeah, you bring the plane, build the plane as you're flying, right?
That's it. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it
yeah.
sounds like. And that's some superwoman move.
I don't know. It didn't feel like it. It felt messy. It was so messy.
You came out of it with a different perspective. And
Mhm.
that experience probably, not probably, I think it did change the way you think about your business and your role.
Yeah,
Describe that. How has that changed your perception about the business and who you are in the business frame?
yeah. It was so interesting because it was like when I came back to work full time in May, like so May of last year, so May of 2025. I'd been working part time through chemo, but obviously I was like not fully engaged because I was just a lot of times I was feeling bad or tired and whatever. But when I came back to work full time in May, I was feeling good. Treatment was over, and I remember she said to me, she was like, you know, if as long as if it's all the same to you, I've got this. I don't need you. Like I was like, whew, nice. So I'm like, I'll take it, right? Like I'll take it. And so my clients were now her clients. My team was now her team. My process was now her process. And she had since made it so much better because she was only a project manager and she wasn't running the whole thing. She had done such a great job. She was running it so much better than I ever did. And so I was so proud of her. And I'm like, well, there's no way I'm stepping back in now. I'm free now, right? Like I'm like 10 and a half years in and I'm like not running the day to the day, right? Like that's every agency owner's dream. When I came back, it was like the first sense was I was excited. I was really excited. I'm like, here we go. I've done it. Like I'm out, I'm literally out. Like I can like do whatever I want to do now, more or less, right? But then it sort of started hitting me and I started actually feeling really lonely and kind of like grief because I didn't have my team anymore. My clients were her clients. And I was just like, it was just weird because it had been a decade. It was a long time, right? And I had just sort of had to let this go. And there was a point where I was feeling like very, what was the word? How would I describe it? I was feeling very abandoned. I was feeling like nobody needs me, nobody wants me, nobody needs to talk to me anymore, which is a huge sign of victory, right? Like in the sense that nobody was coming to me like, da, 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 da. And I remember I started meddling in the work that she was doing. And she literally told me, she was like, look, stay out of it. I don't want to see you. You've been gone. I don't want to see you. I don't want you back. Like, leave me alone. She was a friend of mine, so I could handle it, right? But I'm like, oh, like, what do you mean you don't need my help? Like, what do you mean? And,
It's that identity shift, isn't
oh
it?
my God. I was like,
From being needed, quote unquote needed, to
yeah,
feeling like you're no longer needed in the business,
I know.
and to sit with that. And the reality is, it's not that you're not needed in the business. You still are, just in a different way. And
In a very different way.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting shift because most of us who are running an agency think that, okay, well, if I can get out of the business, it's going to be amazing. But what you shared is really interesting because there's an identity shift that you had to sit with before you could kind of really enjoy stepping into new things.
Yeah, it was hard because like what she told me was she was like, look, I need you to do the biz dev. I need you to, because everyone, most of our clients were from people that I knew, right? So I was like, okay, I can do that. I've worked in direct sales for 30 years. I love being the hunter, quote unquote. Like I love that. For me, that's very, very fun. So that was not a problem for me to stay in that lane. But it was weird because the handoff was now, okay, I meet them and I might do the first call to get a gist of what they're looking for. But if it looked like it was a valid lead for us, I'd be like, great, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect you to my director of projects. She's going to help you scope it. And then I just began to notice that I never talked to that person again because she would do the scoping and do the sale and do the thing and do the project. And then inside Slack, I had muted all my Slack channels. So I wasn't getting notifications on anything. And it was just like all of a sudden, I'm like, I would see progress happening on these projects with people that I knew, and now they liked her. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like this moment of, wait a second, all my friends are now your friends. It was kind of this weird feeling of like, people would be going to her now for all the questions and people would be reaching out to her and people would be getting messages from my colleagues being like, oh my God, she's amazing. Like, way to go. Good job. And it was this very weird feeling of kind of being quote unquote like left behind. Right. And but then like once I was kind of got over myself and realized the gift that I had been given and realizing that now I can, probably the first time in my career I could really work from an aligned place, was like, okay, I love biz dev marketing. I love it. So for me, that was fine. I can do that, no problem. And then the second thing was it sort of gave me this chance to begin the development of a passion project of something I'd been working on behind the scenes for a long time. And I actually gave myself the license to be like, you know what? No, I want to contribute something else. And because the thing is, anytime you go through a moment like that, right, like cancer or divorce or something, it definitely makes you think, right? And I remember going through cancer and coming back and being like, it does make you think through all those cliche things like legacy and what am I contributing to humanity? What do I want to be known for? What do I want to leave behind me? And so questions like that to me just got stronger and stronger. And I, now that I had the chance with the time, and considering they needed me just on the biz dev, I'm like, wait a second, but that doesn't take all day. That can't fill my. So yeah, I gave myself permission to like open up a different business that is something I personally have been working on for 20 years, but I've been doing behind the scenes with other agency owners for probably 2 years. So yeah, it was exciting. And then once I kind of mentally moved myself out of agency project manager, I was like, I'm like, I don't want to know. Don't tell me. So
I love that you were able to find an A plus player for your team, and having that resource gives us the confidence to really step away. When your A plus player is telling you you're throwing a wrench into things, that's also exciting to hear because it means you can let go and she's confident to hold the reins, and that's a place where a lot of agency owners want to get to. I want to talk a bit more about your team. When people hear contractor based team, they often assume it means less loyalty, less consistency, more chaos. Those words typically come up when we talk about contractor based teams. What have you found to be true instead?
I actually went 10 years before I had my first person quit, actually. So I've never had, yeah, I fired people. Don't get me wrong. I fired people, but I pretty much, the guy who designed my logo before we were a company is still around. Anyone that I've hired and has stayed, I had 100% contractor retention for a decade. So anybody who says flaky, unreliable, I disagree. And some are, like, not to say that like I've batted 1,000% on the people I've hired. Like I've hired a lot of people and I've fired a lot of people, but yeah, I'd never had anybody quit. And so to me, that was a really important distinction. And so I completely disagree. We're a 100% virtual contractor team. My ops manager, she's a contractor. She's not an employee. I've always run on the contractor model. And I think it's just the type of people, I always kind of give this example, like if someone's flaky, they're probably flaky. You know, it's like, are they a reliable person? If they're a reliable person, they're going to be a reliable person. And don't try to make someone who's not reliable be reliable, and sort of really look at the character of the person that you're hiring. Because if you're hiring someone who's reliable and loyal and hardworking and dedicated to excellence, they're going to do that whether they're a freelancer or an employee. And it's because as a contractor, you don't get insurance or bonuses or retirement plans or anything. There's no profit sharing. You know what I mean? It's not the same for someone who's, working in Brazil. And so it's like, as the agency owners, we earn that loyalty. We have to earn that loyalty every single day because they couldn't just walk off. They can walk off. There's no reason they don't. They could just leave. But we have to earn the loyalty and the excellence that we want.
You express the relationship between the business owner and the contractor in such a beautiful way where the business owner earns their loyalty. Now, of course, you get to that stage where it becomes relationship building with your contractors. But before we even get there, what do you look for when bringing on virtual contractors? Before they even come into your world,
Yeah.
what do you actually look for? What matters beyond the technical skill?
Yeah, that's a great question because when we're interviewing, we go through like a multi-phase process. The way that we typically have done our hiring process is through tools like, for example, like freelancer platforms like Upwork, for example. So for me, I will never hire somebody that I can't read their reviews. So Upwork, for example, freelancer platforms or referrals is like you get a really good idea of how good they are at what they do, right? So you're not hiring somebody with no context of who they are. So first thing is I obviously read all their reviews. I read their like how many 5 stars or whatever it is that they have. And then generally once I sort of shortlist, 3 people that I'm interested in, they'll now go through a technical interview with someone on my team. who does their code review. Like we're a dev shop, right? So they do the code review, they do like some test projects, paid test projects and things like that. And then my technical project manager lets me know who technically he likes the best. And so he'll, let's say, narrow it down to two. And then I get to meet them and assess for like fit, culture, personality, their vibe to see if I think I actually like them. Which one do I like the most? Because once they've proven that they can do the job, and then also during a test project and things like that, we get a feel for their communication skills, for their like how quick they are, their responsiveness, their level of English, whatever it is. And then the last piece is, whoever gets the job is the person that I like the best, just from a purely like chemistry, fit, vibe, personality. So yeah, we do a multi-phase interview process.
The test project is just, it's so important because it gives a feel for how that person would work with you and your team. But what I like most is bringing your team member in to chat with the potential, because we forget that it's not just we're hiring that person into your team. That new team member has to work alongside all the other people, and that allows you to gain another perspective. Sometimes we're looking at it from a perspective that doesn't consider the entire team. It just considers our needs. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to work yourself out of your job, guess what? They're not only going to be working with you, they're working with your team.
Exactly. It's that. It's also like I don't code. So I have no idea how to assess their hard skills. So instead of me learning how to code, I let my team do the technical interview because I don't code. I would have no way to assess if they're any good. So yeah, it's at twofold. One, they do the hard technical skills review, but then yeah, they give me a feel of this guy's no good. It's like if you have a best friend that's a guy and you start dating and they're like, no, stay away from that guy. Bad news. It's like that, right? It's kind of the similar thing. So because yeah, I mean, obviously number one, I need to know, do they actually physically have the skills to do it? And I have no way to assess that myself.
Yeah.
So I use their skills for that. And then ultimately they can give me like green light, red light on who they think they like and then who they want to work with. And then ultimately it's my call at the end of the day, who I like the best.
So good. You mentioned that you wish there were a couple of things done differently, and some of those things were probably systems and structures. So now that you're more than a year out of having cancer, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
What systems or structures do you have now in place for remote contractors to work well without everything having to come through you?
My biggest gap was on that PM end. I was lucky. I was able to be available during her onboarding and her training. Even if I was sick, I was able to be there to answer questions or she could call me and we could talk. But there was nothing for her that was anything related to project management, account management, leadership, team leadership. We didn't, like a client list. She's like, who are our clients? There was nothing. I knew who they were. My bookkeeper knew who they were, but I didn't have anything written down for her. And she's like, what do we charge this client? Where's the rate list? And I was like, oh, I had nothing prepped for her. So what she's done and what I've asked her to do as part of her job now, because she's worked on the team for like a year and a half, is please document your PM process, because she's a mom. She's trying to get pregnant with another baby. So if she's ever off on work again, I'm like, I will pay you for your time to document the PM process now. And so she has a PM assistant. So if she ever has to be away or she's sick or she's on vacation, there's someone who's been shadowing her for the last 5 months who knows what she does. So I've double protected myself now, not just with her, but with him, because if she's off, I don't want to get brought back in. I don't want to do that job anymore. And so, yeah, so really dialing in all that PM, AM, team leader structure has been the big part. And yeah, I wish I had prepped her, because as agency owners, it's all in our head and we never think anything's going to happen until it does. And then you're like, ugh, and then the panic, right? But succession planning doesn't have to be like that. It could be a lot more intentional. It should have been. I should have been doing it years ago.
The first phase that any agency owner needs to get themselves out of is doing the work. I think that
Yeah.
a lot of agency owners are stuck doing it. And then once they get up doing the work, they're then account managing. And then you got to get yourself out of the account management or project management. Each level up requires a mindset shift to what your new role will look like. As someone who has stepped out of the day to day, what does your actual day to day look like now?
I know you and I were talking about this earlier on our agency together call, and I do like generally 10 networking calls a week. I do tons of networking calls. I do marketing I'm always thinking of new ways to do the business better. I work with a manager, like debugging, troubleshooting, hiring. So supporting her as she leads the team, developing my relationships, because so much of the agency world is relationship marketing. So really deepening my relationships. So as projects come up, I can send them to her. A lot of my time as well is spent on the passion project that I've just now have the time to work on. Yeah, so it's fun. It's like I was saying on the call earlier today, like there's nothing in my day that I don't like doing anymore. Everything I'm doing now feels so much more aligned to where my skills were. Because I think the difference is because I've run a business my entire career, and I think there's a difference between being really good at something and then actually being your zone of genius. For me, I was a very good project manager. I had my PMP, I had my ACP, I was a Scrum Master. I had all the certifications for project management. I was good. I have 5 younger siblings. Like I've been a PM since I was like 2. So I can do the job. Mm-hmm. Like I ran the business for 10 years, part-time, and paid myself a 6-figure income. So I'm like, I know what I'm doing. But is project management zone of genius? No, it's not. It never was. So now that I'm out of it, and it's like, now I really feel that I'm finally in my zone of genius, which is things like community building and content and things like that, things I'm like great at. So it's fun. You make this shift and you're like, wait a second, how many years did I waste being good at something when I could have been great at something else, right? So
it's exciting to hear that your zone of genius is in that sales lane.
Yeah.
That really helps you define your role in the business. Mm-hmm. So I always get excited when someone says, look, I get to step into my zone of genius, and it is doing more marketing, doing more sales for the business. Because I think a lot of what stepping out of the agency means for agency owners, it's being able to focus on growth.
Yeah.
That being said, I also know you've been focused on growth, yes, but you've also been focused on a passion project. And that's the other exciting thing, because now you get to choose. You get to choose how you want to spend your time. And being stuck in the day to day, I've been there, and you don't even get a chance to think about that passion project when all you do is wake up every day and you're kind of on that automatic mode.
Yeah.
So that's also very exciting. Okay, so for agency owners who are listening and they want more freedom, but they feel like, okay, they're afraid to loosen that grip, what would you tell them to start?
I would say to identify the items that you always procrastinate, because those are the items that you hate. I think a lot of people think the loosening the grip automatically means they need to hire an assistant or a VA. And I'm like, that's not always the case. I didn't hire a VA till year 9. My second hire after a web developer was a bookkeeper. And like I said, I didn't have a VA or an assistant until I was like well established, because admin was always something I was really, really good at. So I didn't need that support, but he needed support in so many other ways, right? So I think it's the most important to look at the things you're already fighting yourself to do. And those are the things that need to be outsourced, because in a world of 6 billion people, someone is going to love doing what you hate doing. And it's probably going to be cheaper than you think. So my first step is, and I wrote about this, I think, on LinkedIn today, but it's put your work into buckets, right? Like in my case, it was money, management, marketing, and then miscellaneous. So I had to organize my tasks into different buckets. And then over the course of 10 years, I was piece by piece, was getting those things off my list. And just to think, it's not something like mine was a big sweep of a person coming in, but that's not usually the case, I think. Like usually it's more of like a gradual offloading, this and then this and then this. But yeah, definitely just start with those things that you hate to do.
What really speaks to me is that building a team around you isn't cookie cutter.
No.
It's never cookie cutter. Even if you run a specific type of business, in our case, an agency business, just because your friend over here hired this person as their first hire doesn't necessarily mean that same person is going to be your first hire. And the major work is having clarity about who you are in the business, what you like to do, and then deciding all the areas that aren't for you. And of course, there's the challenge of resources, i.e., money, in order to hire people to do all the things. And it's a matter of prioritizing. So, prioritizing the main things to get off your plate and eventually getting all the things off your plate. I'm so excited that you are where you are right now.
Thank you.
Before we go, Natasha, where could people find you?
Yeah, just head over to LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. So I would love to see you there. Tell me that you saw me on the Audrey podcast, and I would love to meet you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.